Welcome back, Beards and Vultures fans. We're here with another Rapid Fire. I'm here with Walt, Josh. We're here to talk about 40K. So let's just get
What
started
week for
off
40K?
Yeah, I know, 40K and some other stuff. Let's just start off the bat with, it's been weirdly a slow news week. They're pushing a lot of Horus Heresy stuff on us. Walt will talk about that. I'm going to talk about World Eaters because, well, they're a really cool Chaos Legion for heretics. They're pretty cool. And they're in a rough spot right now. Armor of Contempt made them pretty much use. I had a game with them over the weekend, and they're, long story short, 5 Berserkers couldn't kill my Devastator squad, and my buddy was upset. Anyways, hi Matt, thank you. They're coming out June 17th, which probably means that the Chaos Codex will either be the week before or same weekend, I would imagine. And with that, like, June Chaos Space Marines are right around the corner, guys. Goodbye, Tyranid meta. Welcome, Chaos meta, probably. Or maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, they're better Space Marines in a lot of ways.
You know, it's not going to be, hey, they're not better Space Marines.
They deserve some time, to be fair.
They're gonna have more. They're gonna have more attacks. They're gonna have, and I still think they're gonna be cheaper. It all depends on their points.
They're also not Space Marines. They're Legionnaires.
That's true.
I am happy though that looking at some of the leaks that we've seen, that one of my favorite armies is gonna get some love. I.e., I think that Night Lords might be viable, which is great because I have a buddy who wanted to play Night Lords forever, and their mechanic is leadership, and most things just have a way around it. But they've found this interesting thing where if the leadership is low once they're in their super doctrine, they actually also get +1 to wound while creating these negatives to leadership. So the leadership actually will help them in a way without necessarily working on attrition tests as much, which I think is a real cool combo.
I'm excited to see that.
I'm excited to see the big mix-up. I mean, whenever you have, like when Space Marines came out, because you have, like, all the different chapters, you got a lot of craziness that can happen, and when the whole big thick book comes out, it's gonna be wild. There's gonna be a lot of cool mix up.
Is that a good thing? like isn't that like half of what? Isn't that half of my salty walty setups are? They're just too complex, doing too many things at once, and then the wombo combo. Like, isn't that like kind of my thesis for a lot of things?
I mean, GW's been trying to kill Soup, which is weirdly kind of creeping back a little bit with all the Agents of the Imperium stuff, but that's a different talk for a different day. So maybe we'll see that, like, the new combo is going to be, you know, Emperor's Children with Iron Warriors, you know what I mean? Like a patrol and a patrol of World Eater.
No, I don't think you'll see that. I think what you'll see in the end, you'll want that super doctrine, because almost all of them have a super doctrine, and to get that, you're going to need to be solidified in that. They just might have Agents of Chaos that might matter or something.
Yeah,
which I feel is fine.
That's enough chaos talk. A bunch of heresy. Let's move right on into Walt. You want to talk to us about how much you love Horus Heresy?
So here's the thing. I desperately do love Horus Heresy. I think it's beautiful. I have Leman Russ. He's been sitting in my bench for about a good solid 2 years, maybe even 3. Why? Because I want to play him really, really badly in a game that I know, and he has yet to come out in a game I know. Instead, he's coming out in this game that is esoterically 6 or 7 years old and still uses templates that cause people to fight and still has all of the rules that probably some of the worst bloat I've ever experienced. Like, I remember, i.e., we're playing 7th edition with Horus Heresy. You know, I played a little bit of 7th edition, and I remember it not being fun because I spent all of my time in this little, like, super handbook that you had to keep around, right? What does this keyword mean? What does that keyword mean? It's surprising to me that while there's this great push for all this plastic models that look great, I love the 2 new captains. Those are really interesting. I love what I've seen some artists do with them across the, you know, the different chapters. But why? Why is this game still in 7th edition? I mean, it feels like the barrier to entry is having a time machine. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see this game exist where I can play it, and hey, maybe I'm not playing it at tournaments, but it should be something akin to 9th edition, maybe with some different balancing. So that way, hey, my buddy who's really into 9th edition can play with me when I'm trying to learn Horus Heresy, and I can teach him to get on the Horus Heresy board, and then we have 2 people who are creating 2 different armies, and then that would grow the culture. Versus now, where it's like, hey, do you remember 7th edition? Yes or no, because it's more than 5 years old. Which right there, I'm done. It's 2 editions ago when it comes to Warhammer, which should say enough. It's just, it's silly that is the place that they're trying to bring us back to.
Just to jump aboard the bandwagon here, it's weird to see GW when I remember when it switched over to 9th and how easy it was to teach people how to play 40K. You needed literally 2 books. You had the index and then you had the rule book, and it was like 4 pages of rules, which had a lot of problems.
I think I know what it feels like. They're trying to make it to where it's like, cool. This at least this is how it felt with 2nd edition AOS was the simplest of the main games. Then 40K was a little bit more difficult, and then Horus Heresy was the most difficult. The problem is that these games have all gone and splintered off into their own thing. AOS is so much less like what 9th edition 40K is now, with its way that you have to move your troops, and a lot of things are different now with 3rd edition. Enough so to where there's a barrier for me to get into that game. Versus oh yeah, I know the basic rules, let's make this work. I don't think that's the goal anymore, or at least if it is, they're doing it poorly. Right? If the goal is, hey, let's have easy, medium, and hard mode of these games. So if you want more complexity, you move to the different game set. That would be wonderful. But it should all start at the same base, and they're not doing that. So therefore, we're not going that direction. Therefore, Horus Heresy should not be 7th ed.
I think the funniest memes I've seen so far, one of them was from Katie from Tabletop Tactics, and she was just like, I'm going to learn how to play Horus Heresy. I think I'm forgetting something, though, and it was just AOS, just AOS in the bottom right corner. Just oh yeah, I forgot how to play AOS now. It's too many rules. Too many rules.
Exactly. It's well, right now, GW should try to streamline it, so that way we have more, digital, more personal RAM, if you will, to invest in their other games. I'm sitting here staring right now at Silver Tower, Execution Force, Blackstone Fortress, Cursed City, and Stormcloud Attack. Literally have the boxes all right there, and I'm not touching them because I'm I can't do that. I gotta make sure I know all these new armies for the channel and all that kind of stuff. I can't get invested in it. I just can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only I agree with your time machine analogy. The only way having played since 3rd edition, the only way I would be okay with that is if they purposely made it like a 5th edition, 4th edition rule set, which some people view as like a golden age of Warhammer for a little bit, and sort of
take the rule set but maybe rebalance it, right? Take whatever made that golden edition of feeling like you're old school. Go there, but maybe rebalance. Go, okay, this shit didn't work.
And that fits with the golden age of the Imperium and all that jazz.
Yeah, totally.
But 7th edition, having played since 3rd edition, was probably their worst edition ever.
Yeah.
To this day, still. So
yeah,
that's the edition I got in on.
I'm sorry.
It is the edition I started playing, but luckily 8th edition came out 6 months later. I was just playing Kill Team, but even then, just looking at this book and going, okay, there's 27 keywords and this chart to figure out whether or not I hit, or how do I go to all these keywords and also get this chart? And then my friend's oh, you just memorized the chart. I'm like,
the chart you could get down. That was, I remember, and that partially because it was the same.
Compare it to the 8th edition version.
Compared to 8th, it was weird. Yeah. But the keyword thing, you're 100% right on that. That keyword thing was a mess. And even though I knew a lot of it, I had to have the booklet too.
And there are other things like the blast templates, the flamer templates, things like that are
terrible.
And they're back. They were funsy for immersion, but they're bad for a gameplay mechanic, especially as we're trying to move this game into something a little bit more universal, something that can be, say, e-streamed or any of those kinds of things that they're looking to do with this game. They just don't have that right now.
Well, I think they also have the armor values still, right, on the front and the side and the back.
Yeah.
And that causes a lot of fights because it's you have the front armor and the side armor, and it's where is that line? So it's
well, luckily, at least for the most part, most of the Horus Heresy models, like when it comes to those what would be a front top side, have their boxes. So you have
even
less
then though you would still run into it because it's like, well, at a certain angle it could be both, and then you're
like if
and
you're
then you have a fight
square
over
in with that corner and you're like, well, I want it to be this, well, I want it to be that. Clearly, it's advantageous for me to want a certain thing.
Exactly.
And you want something else. Yeah.
Then you got results
it's
like
a whole problem.
Yeah, like weapon destroyed and all that stuff. You have to remember the weapon was destroyed, and then
it's got some admin to it. Yeah, that could be a quirky sort of fun, and that fits on that like higher level of difficulty or whatever. But the table I don't mind. It was the things that cause arguments is what I don't like, which is the blast templates and the armor values, armor facing,
Scattered Eye.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
Oh my god, Scattered
Eye
was the worst for it.
I mean, again,
No,
Scattered Eye.
The
first time I saw Scattered Eye, I was like, "That's really inventive." And then, like after the third time using it, I was like, "This is really unclear."
Terrible. Yep.
It really just creates for a place in which to fight, right?
Yep, it really does.
It is an adversarial game. There isn't a DM who can come by and be like, "Well, actually," I mean, that's
GW puts in like every single one of their rule books now, just like, in case you and your opponent can't seem to settle on an agreement, roll a d6. He's like, all right.
Yeah, that's the, hey, we don't feel like balancing our game, and we're gonna just put it on you. That's just like a saying. Like, I'm not even gonna get into it, but yeah, it's not great. The other issue I have with it, I mean, I really wish they would have some way in which you could play 40k. Like 40k against Horus Heresy, right? Like the idea, you're in the warp, you're fighting each other. I don't know, but just an easy way to say, time gets wobbly or whatever in the warp, so maybe you could justify it. But now I can play my Leman Russ, who again is sitting there just rotting right next to the new Fafnir model, who I'm like debating whether or not I'm going to convert to. I was when they were announcing Horus Heresy, I was like, oh, I'm going to save all my Horus Heresy models that I have, which I have a lot, and get this whole Space Wolf army going. But they haven't moved it to off 7th, so sorry, GW, I won't buy your product.
I will continue reading your Horus Heresy books with much gusto because
awesome.
And I'll just sit here and I'm really sad because I have Deathsworn and a bunch of other really cool models that I would love. GW, just make it 8th edition. I'd be happy at 8th. Don't even need to get it up to 9th. Not even partial to 9th. Just give me something that is an easier game to enter into while I also have the skills of a 9th or, because the skill, it's just a different set of skill sets, right?
Right. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yep. And it's taking up too much RAM, and now I can't get into any other parts of this, especially.
I barely know the armies I play now. And with that, barely playing armies, let's talk. Josh, you want to chit-chat about 40k stat?
Yeah, so I had a rant about it while Rob and I were in the studio, and then apparently Goonhammer read my mind and bought 40k stats, or now have a 40k stats section.
Yeah, they actually bought the. I think they bought it from whoever was doing it, so now they've taken control over it.
Yeah,
and I believe they're taking ITC battles as well, so the app that normally had most of that information.
Yeah, I just think there's some issues with trying to gauge army value based on win rates at tournaments, and it's just not a great or complete data set. I mean, it works somewhat. You can get some okay insights with it, I guess, but there's really no way to, like, how do I put it? Like the skill level is not involved in that stat at all. And I know there's no way to really measure that, but
yeah. Well, but the idea should be, right? Like, if anybody's coming up to play an army, they should, like, there's 50-50 chance that they're going to be there for skill, right? Like, whatever the skill set is, you're going to get bad players playing an army just as much as you'll get good players playing an army. So theoretically, they should even out. That's not at all true, but
not at
theoretically.
Right. That's not, like, that's not really how like, the whole thing is like, we're going to have stats, and it's like, well, that's not really how stats work. You should, like, weigh things.
The other thing I don't like is most of the times that they do these stats, especially when GW gets involved, and they're not here, but like you see them and they just focus on win rate and not necessarily when
100%.
that win rate happens, right?
Yep.
Like you'll see in this one they do. They actually do talk about first game win rate, right? So the
That was
idea
something
is if
new.
you're
I like that.
yeah, if you're not winning that first game, you're not getting up to the finals, right? So if you only win 1% of those games, you've got a problem, right? Like
Yep.
if you only win, like if the chances are that you, like I think Space Wolves or something when I looked at it, they win the first game like 1.5 times. So like out of every time that they play, every time two people play, one of them is winning, right? 1.5 or something
Right.
like that. But the way the stats work. Again, I wish that they had a little bit better of a way of explaining how these things correlate, and I think that might be something that Goonhammer will do over time. But I am glad to see that Goonhammer, who is pretty decent about dealing with the math hammer, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Handling it.
it's really the best you can do under the circumstances, because like part of
Yeah.
what I'm thinking out loud with is just like yeah, it's somewhat informative. I don't think it's the best of balance indicators, because you could have, I mean, Tyranids are just the new hotness, right? Let's just take that as an example. But
Yeah.
if if you've got like a Siegler or whoever playing it, and then they just happen to run into someone who's played twice,
Yeah.
yeah, they're gonna win that first game. That's a
Yeah.
But then they get wrapped up into this first loss, first win, or whatever, and it's like, well,
Well,
it
yeah, I get
it's
what
kind of a
you're saying.
meaningless stat at that point.
Yeah, but there are a lot of games happening at 40K that are getting reported into this every single week, right? So
There
not
are.
just the game that Richard Siegler is part of. There's going to be the little small tournament that I do down in Stanton that at least had itself, registered through Best Coast Pairings is now also in there, right?
But that's kind of another example. What I'm saying is that so you'll have there's no account for the meta of the areas as well. So you could have an area that doesn't have a Tyranid player.
Yeah.
You could have areas that don't have this or that. Or they're all, no offense, like bad players, bad.
Yeah, the bad player,
and
I take offense to that.
I'm just saying it'll warp your stats, because like I don't know, maybe the CSM player or the Imperial Guard player in that area is the best, and someone just doesn't know what they're doing with Tyranids. It just like, and I know there's a lot of games, so like volume is the idea with the
Yeah,
stat,
I mean,
but
Or they're
it shouldn't tell you.
there's just a lot of non-quantifiable variables, I guess I would say.
Well, yeah, but I think there are some things you can quantify. For instance, let's take a look at like say LVO this year, right? LVO
agree
was
there are.
clearly dominated by Custodes. You could just look at the fact that most Custodes players made it past their fourth and fifth games undefeated, right? Who won? Not a Custodes player. Custodes player lost to Richard Siegler, who was playing AdMech at the time, right?
Why I referenced
So
it.
like. Yeah, no, I know, but this is a great example,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
specific moment. But you can still look, hey, all of these guys were able to get to their third game undefeated. Like almost all of them. We're talking like there were like 80 players and at least 70 of them got to 3 games undefeated. Meaning they had a
Right.
whole day of just doing it. You know what I mean?
And a specific event, I think, is a little easier to track like that. It's when
Yeah.
you're aggregating the GTs of the weekend, or
Yeah.
all of the tournaments over the weekend, because not all tournaments are equal. Every
No,
area
I
has
mean,
its own meta and its own differences. I
well,
mean,
it also doesn't. The other thing to consider is that it doesn't always put similar sized games together. So you might have, I might have a combat patrol mission, right, in which I've decided to play a 500 point tournament. They exist. You guys are going to a 1,000 point tournament here, right?
Oh yeah, on Saturday.
Those metas are 100% different.
They are.
Than what a 2K meta would be. Why? Well, because you're not like suddenly your knight doesn't make any sense to bring, because that's so much points. And if you do bring it, very few other armies have the firepower to take you down, right? Like it becomes a completely different meta than say if you brought a knight to a 2,000 point army, and even some of the weaker armies have some sort of melta that can kill a knight.
Yeah, it really depends on your matchups. Yeah, I'm bringing a Land Raider.
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean, but they're not counting those games anyway.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Like it's different, but I
mean,
guess
they are counting those games. If it's 1,000 point, like the game still gets reported to ITC. So if it gets in Best Coast Pairings, it becomes a game. right?
I think the analogy I'm looking for is it's gonna be a super nerdy analogy. StarCraft 2 and
Okay.
the regional. If you don't know anything about StarCraft 2, Korea is considered like the place for StarCraft 2.
Well, I mean, Korea is this place for like a lot of games. Like they're also
It
like
is.
League of Legends is like Korea League of Legends is like its own thing, right?
Exactly.
Korea?
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
I'm sorry, I know nothing about what you guys. You mean Korea, the country?
correct.
yes,
South
there are
Korea.
some very good video game players.
Oh,
A
like
lot
South
of esports.
Yeah.
Yeah, South Korea.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
non-fascist Korea. That one.
Yeah, StarCraft 2 is just where the concept of regions having different skill sets came into play.
Yeah.
And it is a thing. It's an unquantifiable thing.
It is something
But
that does show up.
it is something
ITC
that
does
shows up.
actually.
Yeah.
ITC does actually do regional best ofs. So if
See, I
you're
didn't see
doing
that in the
ITC
40K stats.
rankings,
Okay.
now in 40K stats, I don't know if you can change it by region, but the actual rankings, right? So it'd say, hey, the best Space Wolf player in North America is this guy. For a long time there, it was a buddy of mine who plays in our local meta, right? And I talk to him all the time. Now I think it might be another guy, but yeah, it's there. Honestly, you can go, hey, this is the best Space Wolf player in North America versus the best European Space Wolf player. And there are those stats within ITC, like Frontline Gaming ITC systems.
That's
I
true.
don't know how that is incorporating itself within the 40K stats.
I
and
don't
know
see it
how
in
it
the 40K
continues
stats
to.
yet. I didn't get a super hard look at it yet.
Yeah,
But
Something to look into, though.
you know, it's something to look into. It's also just sort of more. I'm not a giant fan of using stats for everything, I guess, for the game
fair
because I
enough.
think it's too many. There's too many variables.
Yep.
And it should be fun over math, but that's just me. That's it.
And some people love the math hammer part of the game, and bless them.
Yeah,
You do you.
that's a word for it. But I have my thoughts about that, but
I love the Math Hammer people, and I really, really wish the GW did. Because then you'd have better testing, and then we wouldn't need to Math Hammer everything as much.
It is always fun to run into that opponent where you're just like, I have a 33.3 repeating chance of making this. And you're just like, hey, probably
Yeah,
not going to take that.
Some of those stats you should really know. Like, guys, I'm telling you right now, that charge that you think you're going to get at 9 inches, it's a lot lower chance than you think it is.
Oh yeah,
and that's where I'm like, no, ignore the math. Just have that heroic moment and roll your dice and have fun. And I don't know, man. Maybe it's because I've been playing since 3rd edition. And I'm an old grizzled veteran. And I'm like, whatever, man.
Well, I mean, it can still work that way. You can still go, well, when you're choosing between two models that are both at that 9 inch, you think with a little bit of that, you can still chart. Hey, man, ABCs are my foot.
I'm not saying don't have strategy.
Entire...
Yeah, I'm just saying sometimes people take it a little too seriously, and at the end of the day, it is plastic toy soldiers. And I'm just like, bro.
ABCs are my fun, though. Always be charging.
Oh my god. Always be holding the line, your shooting line, firing line.
Yeah, Rob does not like melee, so.
Yeah, you out of the club here.
You got two melee players here.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
If you shoot them before they get to you, there is no melee phase. It's perfect. Perfect system. And moving on to Imperial Knights.
Also no honor, which is also important. Moving on to those Imperial Knights.
True. Yes.
Walt got last shot. He wins. Imperial Knights. I spent a good part today reading the codex and going over stuff. A lot of the stat changes for weapons and stuff like that. I mean, there's 1,000 videos online. Every single person has already covered this. Some of the night houses are really cool. It's a fun thing. I hate the code of chivalry, or the chivalric code they have, where it's just you have honors, and if you don't do the things, then you get penalties, you lose honor points, and it's just tedious bookkeeping that I feel like detracts from the game. And I get it if you're like a Quester Imperialis, where you're like where they are like knights, what they're supposed to be, like old knight households. I get that would have been if they simplified it and like made it like kind of like a little side mini game where you're like, that's cool. I like that. I love King Arthur and stuff. But like I'm more of a Mechanicus player for my knights, and beep boop don't make no sense.
So my big issue with that, as soon as I read that, I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely that thing that player who really is going to try and beat me at all cost is not going to tell me. He's not going to tell me it's Trout or whatever it is, Trout, or you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
it's Trout as far as I'm concerned.
Trout.
I'm calling it Trout. It's my fish. He's not going to be like, oh, my fish means that I need to actually ABC. Otherwise, I lose my points. Nah, he's not going to tell me that. It's going to be, you're going to see these guys who are just going to forget that rule, I think, a lot, which is going to be fun. Yeah.
I also don't like having my opponent be able to dictate what I do. I.e., like, he's just like, oh, this is what you have to do. So I will just focus fire and I will completely destroy your army because you have to do a thing.
Yeah, but there are some that are easier than others, right? Like certain ones, like I think one of those civil ones is like, yeah, you're going to be doing this if you're playing the game. It's like stay on objectives.
Right? Yeah. Don't let the opponent take the objectives from you, which is fine. But
cool.
It's also
yeah, you can do that.
Where it's real easy for your opponent because like all you have to do is fail that. He has to kill you off of 1 point, and so he can kind of dictate. Like it's just like it's
but like if I recall, you get benefits for not losing, not at the end of your turn, not be on less objectives. So it's really hard for you to do it on your turn. That's the thing. Like I think that one is really pretty decent.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about because I haven't looked at this at all. So
yeah, well, I've been studying the Knights Codex so that way I can beat you. Foreshadowing.
I haven't looked at it at all, so that I will lose.
Yeah. There's some foreshadowing, guys.
Yeah,
right there. That's my foreshadowing.
Overall, it looks like a lot of fun. The household traditions thing. I'm gonna have to build or like get something custom made so I can remember my honor points and troth points, and so I'm like super honorified and not honorified and just compared to the Chaos book, I feel like the Chaos Knights came out way better. I mean, just having that giant Psyker Knight, like that's huge, and like we got no defense against that. Just oops. So
I do think there is some win in the fact that the like the agents of the Imperium that you get now with like their splashing in a knight is super fun. Yeah.
Free blades are money, 100%. Love them, love it.
I can think of one I'm gonna take. See it, Josh?
I fear no beast.
Except for Sir Hector.
Maybe. Sir Hector can eat a...
Whoa!
Yeah. I don't know who that is.
You haven't seen it? I believe, sir, we are alluding to him. So, yeah, there's one knight named character. Really, there's only one. You can turn your guys into characters, but there's only one that is actually named, and that's the Knight Preceptor, Canis Rex, who works as a Freeblade. And he's got an ability called Freedom's Hand. It is his special weapon. It does all kinds of weapon damage, and against non-Imperium guys, explode 6. Like any non-Imperium, it's not even Chaos or anything. It's like you going up against orcs, cool. I get exploding 6s. So he's gonna be fun. He's a lot of points. It's like 440 points. Definitely a choice to be made when you take that guy.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that you really see, like a Knight Gallant or something that you want to take?
My Castellan got a teeny bit of a glow up. You can use its shield breaker missiles. Like you can pop all 4 in the same turn now.
Yeah.
Which is like, oof, ouch.
Yeah.
So you can just like really like turn 2 if you're still alive, just really hammer down. I was happy to see that House Tyrannus kept its 6-up Feel No Pain. Because I thought they were getting rid of that in this edition, slowly but surely. But them keeping it, well, albeit it is a knight household where you're only having like like 6 or 9 models to roll for that.
Yeah, because it's not even one that you can take with the armigers and stuff, right?
No, that is
Oh, you still can? Okay, so there's ways to get a couple more models on the board.
yeah. So they can all like House Tyrannus, like you just they get a 6-up Feel No Pain, and yeah. So it's I thought they were getting rid of it. So yeah, we'll see. Other than that, it's fun. It's good. They slowed some of the armigers down. I think the Warglaives are slower now. They went from like 14 to 12, I think. Other than that, it's a fun codex. It's not going to be meta breaking as far as I can see, but then again,
Yeah, it looks like an A minus. Like tier wise, I'd maybe give it A minus, maybe a B plus.
Yeah, Knights have never been tier breaking except for that one list back in 8th when it was like a Castellan and then like 8,000 guard.
That wasn't a knight list. That was a soup list, which is the problem, right?
Yeah.
And this doesn't have. So you still don't really have. You can still take a knight Castellan and a bunch of guard. I don't think it's going to go well for you, but you could, right? Just like, you could take a knight with a bunch of other stuff, right? I think I like the way that they brought in some of it. I don't think it's going to break anything, but I do think there will be some balance. I think the bigger thing that happened is now they've made it to where it's like armigers are really important. Like if you're playing knights and you don't have armigers, just go home, go get some armigers, because so much about it like is building on like the knight preceptors now get this like chaplain like ability to make them better. Half the like stratagems that you can use are really geared to be used towards that. It is definitely if you want to go mono knights, you definitely want to consider the armigers. So you want to get them in there.
They're also one of the more command point or stratagem heavy using armies that you like, but they also have, depending on which house you run, you can get up to 3 CP back at the start of every command phase.
Yeah, exactly. Which I actually think is a really good mechanic. I think that's where you have to be honored, right? If you're honored, you get that, right?
One of them is that you get 1 if you're honored, you get 1 from the start, and then a certain house gives you a 3rd one, and it's just like.
Well, that'd be great when it gets cut, when your CP gets cut in half.
More. Yeah. Well, and there's like, the new CP getting cut in half is definitely going to affect a lot of things. I think. Like, I was thinking about doing the souping with the knight a little bit more, but now that you're losing a lot of CP off the get go, that's going to hurt, right? Well, so like that knight costing you 3 is going to cost a lot.
Well, that's the thing is that you can't even bring some like trying to run like 3 detachments and stuff. Probably can't do it anymore. It's too expensive.
Yeah, without getting. I mean, I think you still can, because you can do 1 patrol and 1 like outrider and then 1 battalion, right? Something like that, and then you get the 3 CP back because you put your leader in that battalion.
Yeah.
So there are ones. It's just you have to be.
5 CP to do that.
Yep. Well, you still get 1 CP at the start of the turn.
It halves it but after your army building though, right? Is my understanding.
Oh, I haven't looked at how it's actually going to operate yet because I haven't seen those rules.
I assume that's what it was. So you'd have like, just say you did 3 outriders, so you're down 9 points, and then you have it.
And then you get 2 back. Everyone, I hate that method. Yeah. Like that's like, so they're adding more math for pregame. Like, okay, you take these things, then you have it, then you divide by and then we add this. Like, what are we doing here? Like, how many more of these? Like, I get the idea. Like, just make it to where, cool, this is what you get, and this is what you get. Make that the new rule. I hope they don't make it half.
It's not in stone. It's just that's what I remember. So,
ladies and gentlemen, be prepared for a salty, walty conversation after that, if that's the case.
That's as bad as those missions in the book where they're just like, you only get the command point if you're standing on this objective A on a Tuesday every 3rd day of the. Like, no.
While you forgot while Mercury's in retrograde.
Yeah, give me my darn command point. Give
really, just be done with it. Yeah.
Don't make it conditional. Oh, it's up there with GW stuff, like when they were like, oh hey, spend 2 CP, and then on a 4 up, maybe a thing stops. You're just like, I already spent the CP.
Yeah. Stop. Well, we could fight about that all day. That's probably another good section for our next chat. I think we've said. Do you have anything more to say about knights?
They look cool. I'm done.
That is true. Coming for you, Josh.
Josh, you want to walk us
ready?
out?
All right. thanks for joining us, tuning in. Thanks to Patreons. Please like, subscribe, helps the channel. And again, once again, thank you to the Patreons. You guys help us keep the lights on. And with that, keep on gaming.